Aleene here, welcome to my channel. Today I've got something a little bit different on my channel. I've been a bit quiet lately, but I got approached by Cricut to see whether I wanted to have one of their new machines, the Explore 3, and try making some cards with it. So I've jumped at the chance. I think it's an absolutely wonderful machine. They sent me all this amazing stuff, some vinyl, some foil, a foiling kit, card, all sorts of things. So I'm going to make 2 cards today and then play with lots of the other stuff when I get a chance, but today's cards are going to be one with pretty flowers and the other's going to be a Christmas card that I'm going to foil. I've never had a Cricut machine, but apparently the Explore 3, which is this machine, is 2 times faster when you use the smart materials than the previous Cricut, and it cuts really fast, very precise, really fine detail. It's just an amazing machine. So here's my blank canvas. Design Space, which is the program that you design all your Cricut projects with, is such a wonderful, intuitive program, so I found it really easy to use. So I started off making a rectangle that's my card base size, just so I can visualize all the components on it, and I went and found a drawer design in the image library with some roses that I'm going to draw with the pen that I was sent. I also put in a lace border, also out of the image library. We seem to be experiencing quite a shortage of some of the Cricut materials here in New Zealand at the moment, and Cricut asked me to see whether I could find some card at a local store, so I tried, but they didn't have any either, other than these packs of cards that are meant for the joy cutting machine that are cards and inserts. So I ended up getting one of those, and turns out that the card, if I cut it in half, will be the perfect size for cutting out my flowers and leaves for the three-dimensional part of the card. So that's what I ended up doing. So I'm making a rectangle that's just the size of half the card, so that I can visualize how I'm going to fit the petals on when I come to the cutting. And then I'll go and find a rose cutting file that I can make my 3D roses up with. So I'll do one that's larger, duplicate that, make it smaller, and then duplicate that again, and that's 2 roses that are smaller and 1 large. I'll remove the leaves from that and move them over to another area in the canvas, upload another another leaf, and then duplicate that. I also went back in and attached the different collections of the petals together and coloured them the different colours, just so that I could make sure that they stayed together on a mat, and each colour will be on a separate mat. I'm also going to use this Smart Material sticker card that came in the sample pack with the machine. I'm going to do the drawing and the top layer of the lace on that. The beauty of the Smart Material is that you don't have to use the mat. And these glitter pens that I'm going to do the drawing with. The last thing I have to do is because I'm using the Smart Materials for one of the mats, I have to go in and manually pick whether it's a mat or without a mat for each of the mats that I've got on my list, and then I'm ready to go to the machine and do all the cutting out. So I'll meet you over there. I'm able to have the Cricut 3 on my workbench and have it connected by Bluetooth to my PC, which is on another desk further over the other side of the room, so it works really well, and I've got more space to do the cutting out, and then I can go straight into making the rest of the card. These smart materials that Cricut have come out with for the new machines is a game changer. It makes it so easy. You don't have to peel stuff off of a mat. It comes with its own backing, and you peel it off and it's ready to go. Apparently this machine does up to 100 plus materials, and it can also cut up to 3.65 meters in length on some of the vinyls and smart materials. Pretty amazing. Now all the components are cut, I can start making up the card. So with the sticker card, it's made it so much easier for putting the background onto my card base, and then also the top layer of the lace onto the base layer. I can just stick that down, and then I'm going to use glue just to stick the whole lace piece onto my background. I'm now going to make my flowers up. I'm going to only show you the bigger size of the roses because it's a little bit easier to see, but the smallest roses were done exactly the same. I'm not going to show you that on film. It's just too fiddly to film it in my fingers because they're just so tiny. So I go around all the edges with a Dauber and some ink just to colour the petals a little bit. So I go around front and back on all of those parts to the bigger rose, and then I'm going to get my pokey tool and just curl some of the petals around that as I work my way around each of the layers, just giving the rose a little bit of shape. I'm also going to put a little dab of glue on the little tab that joins the petals together, and I'm going to use my reverse tweezers just to be able to hold that together and let it set up a little bit while I go ahead and do the rolling on the rest of the petals, just because it takes a little bit of time for the glue to set up and hold. I also use a ball tool and a sponge square just to help shape the petals, just so that it gives the rose at the end just a little bit more shape and realism. This makes a huge difference. While I'm waiting for the glue to set up, now that I've finished doing the shaping of the petals, I'm going to just do a little bit of shaping on the leaves. So what I do is I've got a smaller ball tool, and I'll just run down the middle of each leaf and a few on an angle either side just to make the veins of the leaves. That just makes a huge difference with the end product on your card. I usually just then pinch right down the middle just to bend the leaf a little bit, and I end up deciding to go back and do a little bit of shading with some colour around all the leaves as well. Once all the leaves are done, I'm going to go back to the different parts of the flower and do that. So one of the very centre parts I'm going to curl right up with the pokey tool and glue that. Then I'm going to go back and glue one of the other bigger layers with the tab and hold that with the tweezers as well to dry. and then I'll flick back to the third layer, which has got 3 petals to it, and I'm going to glue that and curl that so that my 2 little centerpieces are going to fit down into that, so it's just like a little cup shape when I'm finished. Now back to the second part of the very centerpiece. I'm going to just shape that into an oval and curl that round the center tighter curl, and that'll just make my center. I hope you can see that. And by gluing the 3-part petal into a cup shape, I can then put some glue in the bottom of that and put that very center curled part in, and that will be the inside part of my rose. I realized that I had curled the petals the wrong way with some of the bigger underneath petals, so I'm just going to recurl those outwards rather than inwards, and then I can start putting the whole rose together. So it's just a matter of putting a dab of glue on the inside of the base layer, putting the next one in, and you've got to make sure that you alternate the petals. So the petals of the inside one is going to go where the gap of the petals between the petals of the bottom one, and then you do that for the next layer, and then I can just pop in the curled center part. And that's the rose complete. I went ahead and did the same thing with the light pink cutouts that I'd done, coloured them with an ink and then put them together. They were a little bit fiddlier because they're a smaller scale, but I made them exactly the same. So now I've done that, I can start putting my card together. To make the arrangement, I've just glued the 2 bigger leaves towards the left hand side of my lace border, one going down, one going across, and then I'm just going to glue the big rose into the middle of those. To glue the roses on, I'm going to use a thicker glue, and I'm going to put a big blob of glue where I want each of the roses, and then push the rose into that blob, and it allows the rose to stand up while the glue's setting. And then I'll do the same for the other 2 smaller pink roses. And then I'll dot the leaves, the back and the front, and the gaps just to fill up the arrangement a little bit, and that's the card finished. I decided not to put a sentiment on this one because it means that I can give the card for various different occasions, so at this point I'm leaving it without a sentiment. So that's this card finished. I love the drawn silver roses in the background. I think it makes a really pretty card, sort of lacy looking. The next card I'm going to make is going to be a poinsettia card. Instead of doing the drawing in the background, I'm going to do some foiling, and then I'm going to make a 3-dimensional poinsettia instead of a rose and a sentiment this time. So let's get started. So as I said, there was a lot of similarities between this card and the last one. What I'm going to do though is foiling, so I'm going to go and find a draw picture just the same as I did last time, but this time poinsettias, and I'll put that on my canvas, and I've got a square which is just slightly smaller than my card base size, so that's going to be the area that cuts out. I've also made a label with a rectangle and then offset it with a background so that I can cut a coloured background for that. I found a Cricut font that I'm going to do Season's Greetings with, foiled on the top part of the label. I go back later and pick a better one, which I'll show. And then I find a poinsettia cutout that I can make into a 3D poinsettia. That's pretty much the planning of the card and getting it ready for the cutting. And then I'll meet you over at the machine to do the foiling and cutting. So to do the foiling with this card, I ended up cutting the piece of foil just slightly smaller than my piece of card. And the foil comes with these strips that you can stick onto the card. So I went round and trying to keep the foil as taut as possible, stuck it around all four sides, and then I could go ahead and do the foiling. It ended up doing the bigger area, and then it's going to cut out the card piece that I need, and I'll have a piece left over for another card along a border or something. And then it also did the sentiment that I wanted. And then once the machine had finished foiling, it prompted me to take the foil off and then change the foiling head over to just the normal cutting head, which I did. And that's when I got to see the foil, and it's just a beautiful, fine, very even foil. It's just beautiful. So then it's going to cut out the shape of my card panel that I'm going to put on the top, and also the sentiment, and then I can put in the red card, cut out the poinsettias and the base for my sentiment, and then I put in the green, and I can cut out the 2 leaves, and then that's all the cutting and foiling done, and I can just make my card up. Well, this card is a very easy card to put together. I'm just going to do a little bit of shaping of my poinsettias and leaves. I'm going to use my foam square again and a ball tool, and I'm just going to run down the middle of each of the petals of the 2 layers of poinsettias. And if you work your way from the middle to the outside, it does give each individual petal a bit of a shape, but I'm just going to help that along by creasing it with my finger and thumb just to make it more dimensional. I'll go back and do the lines just like you would on a leaf, because the poinsettias do have sort of veining on them, and I'll do that for both layers, kind of play around a bit with the shaping, and then I can glue the 2 layers together. The next thing I'm going to do is do the shaping on the leaves, so I'm just going to glue the little tab parts together that are cut out on the leaves. And then for the centre of the poinsettia, I'm going to put a round blob of glue, and I'm just going to use some gold beads and sprinkle them in on top of the glue, and then pop that aside to dry. I'm now going to get the card base ready, so I'm going to put some double-sided tape on the back of the foil panel. Isn't the foiling just amazing? It just blows me away how well the Cricut does the foiling. I'm going to put some foam tape in between the foiled sentiment and the backing, and then I can just put all those parts together, and that's the card base ready to go. Lastly, I'm just going to do some veining on the leaves now that the tabs are dry. Once the poinsettia is dry, I can pop it onto my card, put the leaves in, and that's the card finished. So that's the cards completed for the video today. Thank you for bearing with me for what turned out to be such a long video. You're amazing. Thanks again to Cricut for supplying all the materials and the amazing machine. I'm so grateful for it. Thank you very much. I'll leave you looking at some photos of the two cards that I've made today. If you're wanting to make them at all, I'll leave the links to my canvases in the description below, and also the links to the Australia New Zealand division of Cricut if you're a New Zealander, and the main Cricut link if you're from overseas, which I know a lot of my followers are. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you another time. Bye for now.